You happy now?
I'm happy now.
Okay.
We can go ahead and begin.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thursday Child Days.
Oh, you're so boss.
Okay. Starting again. 3, 2. There we got the giggles again.
So dumb. Okay. Hey, welcome to Thursday's Child. I'm Sandy.
And I'm Rick.
And we wanted to talk about getting your diagnosis, getting your loved one's diagnosis. It is a life-changing event. Sometimes you already know what you're heading into. You get a diagnosis while your child is in utero. Sometimes you receive it when they're just born or in the days and weeks after their birth. For us in particular, it was about 10 weeks in coming. We had tried really hard to have kids and had a couple of miscarriages. And then we finally got the news that we had a viable pregnancy and everything seemed to be going fine. It was a really uneventful pregnancy. There seemed to be nothing wrong. Richard was born. It was a normal delivery. He looked a little bit like Rick, just a tiny, pale version. And we were over the moon. It was one of the best moments of our lives, and we were so excited to finally have our dream come true of starting a family together. About 10 weeks in, he was about 10 weeks old, he fell off his changing table.
And the bottom line is make sure that you are watching your child on the changing table because he literally pushed himself off. So
yes, he was a strong little baby. So we did a little swan dive into a wicker trash basket full of diapers. And so he had a pretty soft landing, luckily. But being new parents, we completely freaked out and rushed him to the ER, only to be told by the ER doctor that we could go home and that nothing was wrong with him, that he only had a bruise on his brain. And I stopped cold and I was like, wait, what did you just say? That is not normal. That does not sound normal to me, and I'm not going home until you do a CAT scan of his head. And the doctor, I think, was struggling to keep his patience. It was a busy day in the ER.
it was Saturday.
Yeah. And so finally they agreed to do a CT scan. And what happened after that was about a 4 or 5 waiting period in a triage room.
4 or 5 hour.
Sorry, did I say day?
No, you said 4 or 5, not with no.
Oh, four. What preceded was 4 or 5 hours of waiting while they came in and asked more and more scary questions, like, does either family have a history of neuropsychiatric disorders? Does either family have a history of kidney failure? Are there any intellectual disabilities in either family? And we had no idea what they were really driving at.
Right, and keep in mind that they would come into the waiting room with the two of us and our son and ask a scary question and then leave and not come back for an hour.
Yeah, and not give us context or anything.
And we're just like, what's going on here?
Yeah, so finally, the on-call pediatric neurologist had come in from an outlying county. She walked in. She's a lovely lady. And she said, well, the on-call ER doctor... The radiologist thinks that your son has a rare genetic disorder called tuberous sclerosis. And she said, I'm not sure I agree, but it would be a good idea at this point to get a confirmation of that diagnosis. And we were completely caught off guard, completely shell-shocked. Neither of us had ever heard of tuberous sclerosis. So for those of you who are interested, tuberous sclerosis is a rare genetic disease. it impacts the gene that regulates tissue growth. So a protein...
One of two genes.
Right. So a protein is supposed to carry messages back and forth. That protein breaks down and doesn't do its job adequately. So what ends up happening is you have tumor growth in major organs of the body.
Usually benign.
Right. And in each case of tuberous sclerosis, this manifests differently. So tuberous sclerosis is tuberous sclerosis has a wide range of outcomes, so you never know what you're going to get.
Right.
We had the diagnosis, but we had no idea how it would play out in Richard's life.
Right. So for those of you who have never heard of tuberous sclerosis, we've gotten that diagnosis, we're going to do a number of videos on that specific subject. For those who have a neurodiverse kid that is not tuberous sclerosis, or is what we call TSC, for short, tuberous sclerosis complex. You still may want to watch those videos because there's a lot going on with this particular diagnosis that you will also see with other types of neurodiversity. So watch out for those in the future.
Yeah, 50% of kids with tuberous sclerosis complex also have autism. We always say that it came along for the ride because, quite frankly, Richard has an alphabet soup of issues that are attached to his tuberous sclerosis. So he has autism, he has ADHD, he has OCD, he has sensory processing disorder, he has a major speech impairment, he has epilepsy. That is controlled. We've been very lucky in that regard that his last bout of serious epilepsy in the form of complex partial seizures was under control by the time he was just 6. So since then, we've had the great fortune of having that be controlled. Anyway, as Rick said, we'll spend more time in later videos talking about that. But the point is that we were completely blindsided. We packed up our stuff. We took Richard back to the car, tucked him into his seat, went back to our apartment, and sort of in this haze and autopilot, we went to get the mail because we wanted to just do something that felt normal. Well, we opened our mailbox, and in it was a People magazine. So Grandma knew that I loved my trash. Sorry, People. But anyway, so on the cover of People magazine was Julianne Moore.
The actress.
Who had just become the national spokesperson or a national spokesperson for tuberous sclerosis. Now, why? Because a family with a son with tuberous sclerosis had happened to run into her on a street in New York City. And they took the opportunity to tell their story as quickly as they could to her and beg her to help get the word out, get information out, be a spokesperson for the disease so that we could generate more visibility and hopefully garner more money for research into this disease, which is called a linchpin disease, which means that research into tuberous sclerosis impacts the outcome of research for other disease groups, some cancers, Parkinson's disease, autism. So she agreed because she's a lovely human being. Well, point being, we saw this People magazine and...
I mean, literally the day of our diagnosis,
yeah.
we come home and there's this People magazine with Julianne Moore on the cover with a child with tuberous sclerosis.
Yeah.
And we're sort of like, all right, I think we get it now. It's like, we're going to be okay, but you don't have to tell us twice, that kind of thing. And then of course that Monday we got the official diagnosis from the attending physician at the hospital that's exactly what was going on with us.
Well, then we found out he recommended that we go, if we wanted to, go get more information. It just so happened that my brother-in-law was lifting partners at the gym with the doctor up at Boston Children's Hospital that wrote the diagnostic criteria for the disease. So yet another sign from the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, that this was a real thing and that this was going to be our journey. Around that time, one of my best friends sent me this letter, and inside was this folded up piece of paper, and when I looked, it said, coming to Holland. And it was basically, we'll put a link to it down below. I'm blanking on the author's name, but we'll include all that information in the comments below. The idea is that you're planning for a trip to Italy. You have all your clothes for sunny Italy. You know exactly which museums and restaurants you want to go to. You know which historic landmarks you want to see. You're all excited. You get on the plane, and then you land. And the pilot says, "Welcome to Holland." Okay, so you land in Holland, and it's cold. It's maybe rainy that day. You realize you don't have the right clothes. You don't know where to go to stay. You don't know what you want to see. You don't know what there is to see in Holland. And then little by little, you acclimate. You get the right clothes. You find out that there's this beautiful museum with Van Gogh paintings, and you see the tulips growing, and you start to see the beauty around you. It doesn't mean that times aren't still going to be hard when you get a diagnosis. It just means that along the way, you will find people who support you. You'll find strength in yourself that you didn't expect to find. You'll see beauty in your family life, and you'll begin to sort of come out of that deep grief that hits you right away. What Rick and I have found is that sometimes the grief goes in a little bit of waves. So we regrouped after Richard's diagnosis, and we found a groove that worked. We were surrounded by family and friends who loved us and supported us. We slowly built up our team of doctors, and then the broader team of support that you need, therapists and again, friends, family.
And we'll have future videos on what you need to sort of know about assembling that.
Yeah. But I guess the point is that when you first get the diagnosis, it may feel like the world is crashing around your ears.
And that's okay. That's part of the process.
Yeah. And eventually, you will come out of that initial phase, and you will find things that spark your joy and that make you feel like things are going to be okay.
When we launched this channel, if you've seen a few of our other videos, we almost intentionally didn't launch with this specific video, the diagnosis video, even though that we had talked about it and even tried filming it a few times. We wanted to let you know that there, between the grief and the tears, there is joy. There is fun. There are things essentially that will make you smile every day, even among the things that will make you sad, that will make you angry, that you're sort of wondering, like, why me? Why our family? But again, this is a club that nobody wanted to join, but there are friends, there are resources out there that can and will help you.
And one last thing that I wanted to mention to you all. One of the things that we had to learn pretty early on was to not give in to the urge to isolate ourselves. Strangely, when you get a diagnosis like this, there's a strange sense of embarrassment or shame that might come on, where you feel like, why couldn't things go normally for us? It went so normally for everyone else. And there's sort of this feeling of like, what's wrong with us? Don't give in to that urge to self-isolate. Let your family and friends in. Let them understand what your family is and who your loved one is, and let them learn along with you. They won't know sometimes how to act. They won't understand all the finer points that you do, But in time, if you let them in, they will begin to understand, and they will be some of your greatest supporters. So keep that in mind as you go along.
Yeah. So if this has helped, and again, if you're seeing this for the first time, you may have gotten a diagnosis in the last day or so or week. Your child might be newborn, might be a few weeks to a few months old. It could be years down the road before something was actually noticed. We'll all come into this journey at different times. But we're all in this together, and what we're hoping is that with this community, we can share our experiences and maybe, as I said, help the families that are just now coming in to this world. We're 21 years in, and we have a lot to share.
So click like, subscribe, write down below what your comments are, what questions you might have. Reach out to us anytime as well. And if there's something you'd like to hear about, please do let us know in the comments.
Thank you very much, and we will see you in the future.
Thanks.